we'll have a full outdoor patio bar with volleyball courts, with fire pits, bocce court, and cornhole. And then we'll have a couple food trucks on site.
Everyone needs a place to live their story.
Hey Maddie, how are ya?
Good?
Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you draw me a picture of your dream house?
Oh, sure. In my house, I like to play with Legos, draw pictures, and do art. When people come over to our house, me and my 3 brothers like to play hide and go seek. I like to help Mom and Dad make pizza soup. Every Friday, we make popcorn and squeeze together on our couch for movie night. In the morning when we wake up, it's nice and quiet. But after breakfast, don't expect our house to be quiet for long, because we have lots of playing to do. Grandpa, I'm done.
You are? Awesome. This is your dream house, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
So this is the patio on the roof. This is the chimney that the 2 babies like to climb, and one of them is holding a remote that can fly the toy plane. And this is the daddy using the grill in this thing to make the sausages. And there's one more thing.
What?
A giant arm grabbing out.
What does that giant arm grabbing out do?
It can grab things from space, like anything we want to play with.
Oh, really? So if there's something out in space, it'll grab it and then you can play with it?
Yeah, and sometimes the dad can carve things with the stone on the moon, so it can grab some stone on the moon.
Well, this is a great dream house. Can I be your realtor?
Sure.
Our next contestant comes to us from Oak Park, Illinois. This is Joe West.
I reached out my arms and I touched you. With soft words I whispered your name. I held your love on the tips of my fingers, but that was as close as I.
And our winner this week with 87 points, Joe West. You feeling good?
Oh, yes!
I believe you do feel good, don't you?
Absolutely.
I think, how was that? Absolutely.
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 I met Joe West September 23rd, 2017. He was performing at the Nashville International Airport. I was returning home after attending the annual Story Conference. Documentarian D.T. Slothman was a featured guest there, and he fielded this question: where can we find these great stories to tell? He answered, you don't. They will find you. Less than 24 hours later, I'm tipping a musician, he's giving me his CD, and after our brief introduction, we joked about him coming up to Milwaukee sometime so we could jam together. Later on, Joe shared with me the rich musical legacy of his mom and dad. He recalled going to Harrison, Arkansas with his parents as a young boy. The atmosphere was tense, he said, as the audience was not expecting to see a black couple on stage. At the end of the night, he was amazed to see folks hugging his parents, thanking them for coming and saying how much they loved their show. After sharing other stories about the power of music in his life, I asked him, how would you like to do a documentary about your family? I think he said, absolutely. 6 months later, we took a trip to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. In October 2018, beginning in Fayetteville, Arkansas, this motley film crew traveled 3 states with Joe to capture his story. And 2 years after meeting, Joe and his family came to Milwaukee, where we had our chance to jam together and viewed a premiere screening of this film's first cut. Joined with a mosaic of voices spanning 3 generations, it is my sincerest privilege to introduce to you Mr. Joe West.
You also told me you were a pastor at an all-black church, which was ridiculous in my mind, but wonderful at the same time. And then I got to tell you my story about my mom and my dad initially, who were the first and only African-American country western duo came to Nashville, cut these 2 records, and had some success. And how I got to witness my parents break down walls with not only their music, but how they handled people, how my dad handled them from the stage, how my mom and her sort of quiet meekness, you know, would go to that stage and belt these songs out, and man, people's hearts would just change.
Make welcome right now, Sarge West. I thought I had seen pretty girls in my time. That was before I met you.
Loydas Wyatt West from Coal Hill, Arkansas was the firstborn son of 10 children. His daddy was a Church of Christ minister. As a young teen, Loydas recalls laying in a ditch outside a juke joint listening to the records of his favorite singer, Hank Williams. After serving in the United States Air Force, his nickname, Sarge, would stay with him for the rest of his life. Sarge and his wife Shirley became America's first black country western duo. In 1969, they went to Nashville to record 2 original songs with the bandsmen of Mr. Charlie Pride. Although signing a talent and recording contract in 1971 with Vista International Productions, they never toured nationally and chose a quieter-paced life in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yeah, that was before I met you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Look at all them white folks out there. Is any black people live in this town? Huh? How come they're not here? Listen, it's good to be here tonight. I'll tell you what, I had a heck of a time finding this place. They said go to the schoolhouse, and this turkey over here told me was up on a hill. I went to school one time. Come back here, turkey. Just come here. Would you come over here?
I'm over here already. What do you mean?
I don't need nothing. I just want to see if I can get a white man to do what I asked him to. Bye. Come on. Yeah.
It wouldn't be me, too.
Bye.
Our show is called A Song Can Change Your Life, and I know you and I have had discussions about what that means, you know, on so many different levels. But do you know when you even became conscious of a song affected you?
I think it was in church, in the black church. You know, we did clapping. It was it was moving, you know. But I remember there was one about the crucifixion of Jesus that hit me like a rock, even at a young age. When Christ my Lord was tried by Pilate. So I think church was the first place. And then the other thing I can remember is when my dad brought our first phonograph record player in and set it on the table, and he put a Merle Haggard record on. Mama Tried.
You went from like black gospel to Mama Tried.
Hardcore traditional country, Merle Haggard.
Isn't that awesome?
It was great.
Well, the song I want to talk to you about for A Song Could Change Your Life is one of your originals called Daddy.
I needed to get some reconciliation with my dad, forgive him, and so the best way I knew how to do that was a song. I remember, you know, getting some vacation time and going home and walked into the house, knowing I'm going to play this song for my dad, you know. When we got done, obviously the room was full of emotion, and it's literally the first time I remember embracing my dad and saying I love you, and him saying the same thing back to me. It was the greatest moment.
Wow.
And it changed our relationship forever. I knew he was going to respond. I just didn't realize it was going to be that powerful.
So can you say your relationship with your dad, that's like a line of demarcation of like pre-daddy song, post-daddy song?
It changed everything.
A song can change your life.
A song can certainly change. It can change the direction of somebody's life forever.
It's hard to understand how sometimes I just forget that there's always been a plan.
Tell me about Joe and what he means to you.
And I never did.
We became friends because our parents ran in the same circles of writers, musicians, songwriters, poets, and so on. There was a Tom T. Hall connection between Jim Whitehead and the poet who co-wrote with Tom T. Hall, and maybe he met him through Sarge or something, I don't know. Us weirdos started playing guitars together and formed a little rock and roll band, and we were really bad, but we helped each other get better, and slowly, little by little, but we were like 14, 15, 16 years old, and we went and played some shows.
We did.
And we were pretty good kids. We didn't cause any trouble. We didn't drink. We didn't do drugs. We just wanted to play some rock and roll.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of Joe. He's very talented. He's writing great songs. And I'm just really proud of him as a person, too. I've loved him since I was 14 years old. And I will always love him. For me and my family, there was no color thing. It was, you know, Joe and Tony and Luke and Ann, Sarge and Shirley. Man, we really looked up to Sarge. He was a man's man.
Ain't it a shame? Ain't it a shame? Ain't it a shame the way God's children live? Rich folks are down on the taxes they pay, crying in their pink champagne, while the poor folks make it on beans and greens, and there ain't no use to complain. Ain't it a shame? Ain't it a shame?
Well, he was born in Coal Hill, Arkansas, and he had come home from the Air Force. I saw him walk up on the porch. I lived up on a hill, sort of, and his house was down the street from me. And I saw him out on the porch, and he turned around, and he looked, and he saw me, and here he comes. Are you Shirley? I said, yeah, I'm Shirley. Boy, you sure are fine, he said. So that was, we were together from then on.
What was it like being the daughter of Sarge and Shirley Watson?
I was always hearing something so positive, you know, about your mom and dad, and I think it's truly made me who I am. Just having the background of the country music and all the stories that the music tells.
Animation is the first thing that just comes to my mind because of the different characters in our family and and because of my mother and father and all the people that they've affected our life. So, you know, there are older people that would come and say hi to us and we didn't know who they were. And you Sergeant Shirley's kids, you know, the guy at the bakery that would give us the free cakes and donuts just because we were Sergeant Shirley's kids. And, you know, things like that. Yeah, things like that. So we, in a way, we kind of, we were introduced into a world that some people weren't as kids growing up in that house, you know. Was it stressful sometimes? Yeah, you know, it was. And I think it had a lot to do with the music and the fact that, you know, they had to, you know, stop playing as much.
This friend of Sarge's kept begging us to come up to the square on this Friday night and sing, and I said, I'm not going. He said, hon, come on and go. It'll be all right. I said, I don't want those people hollering and yelling at me and throwing stuff at me. He said, that it won't happen, I promise you. I said, how are you going to keep it from doing it? He said, you watch me. So I finally went there with him. Boy, he got up there and got the clown and got those people laughing and clapping. I couldn't believe it. I mean, we got people standing up, and I sang the Long Black Limousine, and oh man, I couldn't believe it. I guess they fell in love with us then.
You all would have loved Sarge West. He was just the type of person you just couldn't keep from loving, you know. And Shirley was the same way. She was a sweetheart. We'd go out on the stage, and he'd say, come here, Ken. I said, okay. I'd go over and he'd get me by the arm and he'd put me between him and Shirley. Then he'd tell the audience out there, this looks like an Oreo cookie, doesn't it?
I remember.
But he had a way of getting people's attention, and he would break the ice. He would definitely break the ice.
I don't need a lot of money, drive expensive cars, fancy clothes make me look funny. Don't wanna be a big time star.
I've had a lot of things kind of happen in my life in the last few years, and one of those was this thing called a dissected aorta. Any medical people in here knows what that is? And so when I start thinking about all the different catastrophes that I've survived, I know there's a God. I believe that. And but one of the incredible blessings God gave me was my wife. I literally could say this. I wrote this song for my wife like almost every song. All I wanna do is to love you.
I don't even remember what happened in the relationship, but we were a group of friends, and I was upset about something, and Joe started coming over to the house at night after his shows and would just hang out. We'd play cards and watch TV, and But I told him one night, I said, you really should stop coming over. And he said, why? And I said, because I'm starting to like you, and I don't date black people. I told him that.
Joe, what do you think of that?
I don't date black people.
I told my mom when she just didn't understand or wouldn't accept the relationship, and I said, he's everything I wanted in a husband. I think he'll be a good father. He's a great Christian. He, you know, has a job. He does this. You know, I just liked who he was as a person. And so I said, why am I going to pass that up just because of the color of his skin? And she thought that was reason enough. I'm sure my dad told you she wasn't 100% on board.
My wife was kind of upset also. But after we got to know Joe and the way he raised our kids, my wife fell in love with him and his music and everything. It's not like he's a son-in-law, he's more of a son to us now.
Did you have other people questioning the fact that your daughter was marrying a man?
Yes, my family, of course. Of course, I was born and raised in the South, and I'm not so much as a racist, but everybody is to some extent, I think.
I was driving from Tulsa the night before we were going to get married at the courthouse the next day. And I totaled my car. I flipped it, ran off the road, flipped it over 3 or 4 times, completely destroyed my car. My mother had already told me that I would not be welcome in the house and she didn't want to see me again. So after the wreck, she said, I want to see you. I want to make sure you're okay. I want you to come to the house. And that's when we had our big talk, which was the night before we got married. So the wreck really was a good thing.
Got you and your mother to talk.
Mm-hmm. It did.
So you got married at the courthouse?
We did.
But your mother wasn't completely on board. What happened?
She was not on board. She showed up dressed in a black pantsuit, and she walked right up to me and said, I'm here to talk you out of it. And then the whole time, because it's kind of an elopement really, but we wanted our parents there, she was standing behind us crying, like not wailing, but sniffling and blowing her nose and crying the whole time. And she said to me after the wedding, she said to me, I hope you're happy. You've just ruined my life and I hope you're happy. And she actually turned to Joe and hugged him and said, welcome to the family or something like that. And she left, but she said, I can't have you in the home. Like the neighbors would see, it just wouldn't be good. And so it was about 2 weeks later, we were back in town. I called my dad. I said, Joe and I are here. Do you want to meet somewhere for coffee so we can talk? And he goes, well, why don't you just come to the house? And I said, I don't think Mom wants that. And he said, hang on. And he went and talked to her, I guess, and he came back and he said, come to the house. And so that was really the start. We were never not allowed. But the first few years, we were grilling out one time and Joe was in the back with my dad and she wanted me to go get him so the neighbors wouldn't see him. Stuff like that. But she was trying.
Sure.
She was trying. It was hard for her. And, she was upset. She cried a lot. It was very difficult for her. But she put forth a valiant effort. And I would say probably by the 3rd year, she was completely over it. So she thought I should be better to him. Yeah. She would say, do you get up and iron his clothes? I'm like, Mom, he irons mine. I'm not going to get up and iron his clothes. Anyway, she really came around. And
beautiful.
Yeah.
So there's another piece of reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, how would you describe your mother-in-law and the transition she went through?
I mean, all the things she described, obviously, but she hugged me and gave me a kiss on the cheek, and I thought I was gonna fall over.
Back then, there was some racial stuff going on, and people would see me and Sarge together, and sometimes they didn't want to act too friendly. But that didn't bother us because we were friends, We were buddies.
Yeah.
More like brothers. There was a certain amount of hurt for things over the years. Mm-hmm. But I asked Sarge one time, him and I were talking, I said, why don't everybody get along like you and me? He said, Ken, tell you what, when God takes us all home, we'll get along then. Yeah. I've thought about that lots of times, that when God takes us all home.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Because we're all brothers and sisters.
I know you don't think of yourself as like the best father for whatever reasons. I don't even know what those reasons are. And nobody's perfect, so even fathers can't be perfect. But for me, the fact that you always treated us with care and respect, even though you weren't always treated with care and respect, and the fact that you've always been so encouraging in my music, and that's the only thing that I ever needed from you. That's amazing.
I love to tell the story about you because it just sort of defines how I feel about you. And at the hospital when you were born, what a big deal it was when you were born, because the whole hospital went crazy because it was a girl. And they knew we wanted a girl, and we didn't know. We didn't want to find out. So that was the first thing. That was the first blessing from God, that they gave us a girl. But then he gave us this remarkable girl.
Ready, set, go.
You look at people and you don't see color, and you just don't see things that other people see. You see all the good in people. I love to hear you sing, and even back then when you said you couldn't sing, there was something there. I knew there was something there.
Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
Becky is our baby. Josh is our oldest. He's married and has 2 kids. He was in the Marines. Jordan, our second son, 3 years behind Josh. And he was into musical theater, dance, theater. He's a clown. And then Caleb, our third son, he does his music on the side. And
He's really gifted in
poetry,
juggling and that kind of thing, but yeah, his spoken word is
incredible.
My headphones are in and my hood is up as I walk into my 11th grade U.S. history class. Notebook in hand, I'm prepared to spend the period immersed in my own zone. I take a seat next to a colored girl in Chicago subway type blue jeans and a low-cut white tee that screams, "Look at my cleavage, please." And I'm still half asleep, so I'm thinking, please, just don't talk to me. But I barely have 30 seconds of peace before she turns and she just blatantly asks me, "You're not full black, are you?" She asks as if there's a wrong answer. I simply smile and reply, "I don't really know, why don't you tell me? I mean, I wasn't black enough to play basketball with the black kids in my middle school gym class, but I was plenty black enough to get attacked for wearing tight pants and listening to Sabbath. I wasn't black enough to sit in the back of all my classes writing raps, but I wasn't white enough to be studious or pass science and math. Girl, I'm as confused as you are." Growing up, I never knew whether I should be listening to A Tribe Called Quest or Led Zeppelin. Should I be twisting and shouting or two-stepping? If I brought my brighter complexion and nappy biracial hair to chill with my African-American brethren, would they accept it? During Black History Month, am I allowed to stand up and defend it, or will the black kids get offended? Like, you're not even black, you're just a byproduct of our ancestors' oppression. And I'm thinking, I don't know if you knew this, but mulattoes were slaves too. Not only were they slaves, but they were rejected by their brothers and sisters because they weren't black enough, and beat senseless by their fathers because they weren't white enough. And if you and I took a trip through time to sit in those diners for civil rights, then I'd get my ass beat too. Unless, of course, you want to try and tell them that I'm only half black. What do you think, you can distract them from my dad's half? Well, let's backtrack to when that big bad policeman was looking through my backpack for fat sacks of substances. Do you think anybody really cared if he was just jumping to assumptions? There's something wrong when my white mother has to pull my baby sister down from the front porch of her own cousin, look her in the eyes and tell her that she can't go in and use the restroom because she's too wet from the pool. A little girl convinced that racism is dead, confused as to why she has to go piss behind the shed. There's something wrong when I got first cousins living 2 blocks away from me, and for 18 years, I never even knew that they existed until I was writing this piece. There's something wrong when my mother and father aren't even allowed to see each other. Just imagine being kept apart from the only thing that kept you from falling apart because of something as irrelevant as race. There's something wrong here. People are making inferences before listening to wisdom, and that's a mistake. They act like differences in pigment make a difference in positions on the food chain, but we're all the same. See, today, my siblings and I sit side by side in my grandmother's home next to our white cousins and our black cousins, and our white mother and our black father is kicked back in a white lazy boy enjoying a meal that was made by a woman who used to think that he was nothing but a mistake. And this is the way that I was raised. Completely unaware of the past hatred between 2 of my favorite people, I never even knew how to judge someone based on their shade. So when you ask me whether or not I'm full black, I suppose the answer is no. I'm a mulatto. Does that mean I ought to change the way that I talk though? Am I supposed to let my pants halfway sag and turn my snapbacks halfway to the back, sister? Before you ask me whether or not I'm full black, why don't you just ask me what my name is?
We decided all 6 of us kids were gonna make mom and dad dinner So when they came home from after work, that's when we lived on Mount Sequoia, by Miller Williams and all that. And Frank lived next door, and Frank talked us into doing it. And so we ended up killing 3 of the chickens because 2 of them ran off, but we finally got the last one. With Dad's axe, and we're holding the chicken and stuff. So when Dad came home, well, he wasn't too happy about us killing the chickens. So he was lining us up by age. And Joe's like, not today. So Joe found Joe down at Evelyn Hills.
That's exactly right.
Still running.
Uncle Steve found
Yeah, Uncle Steve got you. So I remember that. But he didn't know. We were trying to do something good.
I still remember a long time ago.
I'm still not really sure what the story is between my dad and my grandpa.
You guys, it's a different generation where my dad would take off a belt and he would whip our bottoms. And we were literally afraid of him at certain times because of the way he interacted with my mom from time to time. And so there's a lot of resentment that had built up. When this guy took me to the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., it's helped me understand why my dad reacted the way he did in situations. I was convinced I needed to do something to really reconcile my relationship with my dad, and that's where the song Daddy came from. I went home for a vacation, and we went into the room and I played the song, and it changed our relationship forever.
You fixing those cars, saving to buy me my first guitar.
He loved to mow people's yard, and he wasn't supposed to do that. He was serving people on his way out, doing what he loved to do, helping people. And so I would say that the most important thing in my life is the gospel, and that through the gospel, I have learned to love my dad like God wants me to love my dad. I would say that to him. I'd literally say that to his face.
What do you think your dad would say to you?
Same exact thing. I think he'd say, son, the most important thing is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I'm sure he'd say, I wasn't the perfect dad, but he'd also say, you do have a perfect father, and he's the one you need to make sure that you imitate and honor your life with.
We're gonna pick and sing a little song.
We're gonna pick and sing a little song.
And if it's in your heart to join the chorus part, then open up your heart and sing